that you want to see it. Okay, we're recording. So hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Sykowski. I'm a professor at the University of Toledo, and I'm the lead person on Globe Mission Earth. It's a project funded by NASA to infuse globe.
Too for that thing.
Oh, make sure you mute yourself, guys.
Oh, sorry.
And so anyway, Globe Mission Earth is a project to infuse Globe and NASA assets into the classroom. And so today we're going to hear about teachers and what they're doing in their classrooms. And I think I'm really excited to hear what's going on in their classrooms. So we're going to turn it over, I guess I'll just say to Juliet Hamilton. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you could introduce yourself, Juliet.
Sure. I'm Juliet Hamilton, and I'm a teacher in Auburn, California. And I teach in the foothills of California. And this is my first year as a Globe teacher, and I've had a lot of help from Tracy Ostrom. So it's been really exciting. I'm just incorporating Globe into a lot of my curriculum, and the kids are having a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to start with my slide presentation. Hopefully everybody can see this. And how we started off this year is Tracy actually came over and explained the protocols for collecting data. And we established our site definition, where we're going to take our data. And what was really exciting is that the start of school coincided with the eclipse, so we were able to use our data collection, and that was our first experience taking the data and sending it to NASA for the eclipse. So that was quite fun. Tracy, do I just?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about the other way, and then we'll.
Okay, and then our first unit in science, we're using the next generation science standards. And in our social studies, we are studying the 11 regions of California, the natural regions. And so we used Globe, the soil lesson, the scoop on soils, and modified it a bit to coincide with our curriculum and study the effects of whether or not, if there was a correlation between the types of soils and erosion, which tied in nicely with our standards in our social studies. I think it was around September, I was invited to do an air quality campaign with NASA. So our students have learned how to use the Cali 2. We were given a Cali 2, which has been great for data collection. And so we're part of that study, and I'll talk about that a little more in another slide. And then finally, this will be our first year participating in the Pacific Conference for Globe, and our students will be presenting their data collection from the air quality campaign with NASA. Okay, so here's a picture of sunny California. That's kind of how it looks today too. And so this is my class, and this is the second week of school. And we actually just learned how to use some of the equipment. That's Tracy's site that we're actually building our own, but this is where we collect our data for the most part, or right outside of the classroom. And on this day, we were practicing collecting data. So the students have learned how to identify different types of clouds. We actually have not done the clouds lesson. That's coming up because that'll really tie in with our NASA study. But using the Cali 2, it's a fancy tool, but it collects measurements on the humidity, the air temperature. And my students also learned how to take surface temperature with the infrared gun, and they really enjoyed that. And then we did a lesson on aerosols. We read the story from Globe, and it's really transferring because they are taking the data daily. Let's see what else. This was our soils lesson. We studied this 11 natural regions of California, And we're lucky enough to have soil samples from most of those regions. And the students performed pH test, and kind of tied it into, it really tied into the NGSS standards and our social studies. They had a lot of fun with that. Okay, and then for the air quality campaign, I selected 12 students who were interested because they really, it takes some time, so they have to, have some interest in it. And then 3 students to monitor the Cali 2 so that we're getting accurate data. We kind of had some snafus with that initially, but it's worked itself out. So the lead students have trained their peers, and they're pretty much on their own now. So I just send them out, and it's like, okay, collect your data. We're still fine-tuning how to send it to NASA. We've had some trickiness with that, but it's NASA has gotten some of our data thanks to Tracy helping us out. So had to look at cloud observations, and what else? We're taking temperature readings, the AO2 levels, AOT levels, and yes, this is a daily deal, and it's been super fun. The kids are really excited. I don't even have to remind them anymore. Just go outside and take the data. Let's see. Our next steps, we will probably have 2 to 3 teams that go to the conference, the regional conference, and share our observations. We're going to be comparing the AO2 levels with sky color, sky clarity, and temperature. And then we're hopeful to have a Skype with Margaret Pippin, the lead scientist who's facilitating this study. And then we'll take our information to the conference in May. I think that's it. It's been super fun. The kids love it.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Thanks, Juliet. That was really good. And you're showing that 4th graders can take aerosol observations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great.
I think we're the only 4th grade class. I think we're the only elementary class in this study, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
Well, you can tell them I have trouble taking observations with my Cali 2. And my grad students have a lot of trouble, lining up the little dot is tough. So it's good they can do it.
Yeah.
All right, so our next speakers are Vicki and Gina.
Gina's back. Hopefully she can get on.
Yes, I'm here.
Yay. All right, I'm going to share the screen and we'll get started. So we're going to talk about the sunlight warms the earth. And here is Gina and me at University of Toledo, where we learned exactly what to do. Go, Gina, it's you.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that Vicki's 1st graders took surface temperature readings and submitted those. And my children, we teamed up with a 3rd grade classroom and did cloud observations. We everyone had a printed out cloud paper so that they could identify the clouds, and they teamed up with a 3rd grader to help us get started with it. And then we've made binders that have included our cloud observations. So that was kind of cool to actually take what I learned and introduce it to a 3rd grade teacher and have her get involved with her students. So that's been really fun.
So one of the things we've been working on is life science, which in Ohio, we don't follow NGSS. We follow our own standards because I don't know why. But so right now we're all growing corn, or Gina and I are growing corn. And it started out as a simple life science thing, which wasn't going to be on this. So we talked about, what does the corn need to grow? Will it grow better in the dark or the sun? Ironically, the darkest started out growing better, but they learned that all the food that the corn needs is in its seed, water or no water, and then too much water by accident. But the interesting thing that happened was outside, we put a greenhouse from IKEA out there, and the wind blew it down. And the kids are like, but Mrs. Willet, we need to see how the corn is going to grow with real sun as opposed to what is shining through the window, which went into what we were doing with Globe, with checking surface temperatures and where's the best place. And so starting on Friday, we're going to start to build a cold frame to find out exactly where the best place to grow will be. And this part is Gina. Sorry, I keep.
This is about the sunlight warms the water, ground and air, and we talked about creating a water source. And luckily for us, on the outside of our buildings, there are we actually do have hoses and spigots, so that helps with the with the cold frames and all of that. Then the soil area, and now I'm not sure at West. I think you guys do have, at her school, they do have the pond or area. We don't really have anything over at my school that that has the pond part. So, but they'll work in teams, and
we can build a pond.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So sorry, this was an idea that we had so that we could test. Obviously, it would be bigger, but so that we could test soil and water.
So then we're going to leave it outside for a predetermined amount of time, and just have the children decide what will happen. And then we'll also have journals for them to record and keep track of what how the experiment works out for them.
Then we thought we could take it to the next step and figure out how to cool the structure or warm it, because ultimately
we're going to create a solar oven and make s'mores, which is a great time for the kids. And a lot of the teachers use the pizza boxes and set them up with tin foil and plastic and all of that. And then last year I discovered that we could use a solar oven just using just an ordinary bin, plastic bin that you get at the dollar store, and coated that in tin foil. And it's just really exciting for the kids to see how that all works and to see actually how the sun does heat the chocolate and all of the things like that. So it's really exciting.
And besides, nothing better than s'mores.
Exactly.
So when we were at the SECO conference, we had talked about this book, Notable Notebooks. Neither one of us have any claim to it. The author, Jessica Fries Gaither, is from Columbus. Neither one of us know her, but this book, flat out, and I was talking to Janet about it, and she's like, please share it. So it's about a child who's thinking about different things in a notebook, and the science notebook and how it helps things. And so it talks about when you'd use a notebook and what you'd use it for. But the cool part is they start putting in pieces of different people's or different scientists' notebooks. I read part of it to my class today, and we got through the Beatrix Potter part, where she actually drew pieces of mushrooms, which was really cool. And the kids are like, oh yeah, that's like our corn plants. So if you haven't seen the book, Notable Notebooks, and you want to tie in a literacy piece with your science, this book is amazing. And that's ours.
Thank you. All right, very good. And I like the notebook piece because you're supposed to keep a notebook when you're doing a project or a journal, call it a journal, just like a scientist. All right, so our next speaker is Susan. So Susan, are you ready?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Very good. It took me a moment to unmute. So I'm Susan James, and I teach 5th and 6th grade science and technology computer to everybody in the elementary school at St. Peter's School in Mansfield, Ohio. And this is my first year at St. Peter's. I spent about 15 to 16 years in non-formal education, and that's where I started doing Globe, was in non-formal ed. So it's taken a little bit to transition, I guess I will say, over to the formal ed and integrating Globe. But I have one class, which is a blended class of 5th and 6th graders that is collecting data using iPads, and they love that. And then I have a Globe Club, and that's, I think, what Janet and Kevin wanted me to specifically speak about, was the Globe Club. There's not a whole lot to say, but I will go on and share just a little bit here. So I have 9 students that regularly attend, and we meet roughly twice a month. We've only really met 4 times. We have another club meeting this Thursday. After school, we meet for 1 hour from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. One of our biggest challenges has been those snow days and different holidays and things falling in there. So we started in November, and we're working mostly on the surface temperature and clouds. The grade levels range from 3rd to 6th grade. So the 3rd and 4th graders, they know me from technology, from computer class, but the 5th and 6th graders I have in science class. So my 5th and 6th grade classes, we do not have self-contained classes. So I have each of my science classes for 40 minutes a day, which becomes a challenge because sometimes the class time isn't very good for, it's not the most ideal time to collect data. Or, in the case of my blended class, as a Catholic school, we have Mass once a week, and so I miss their class altogether once a week due to Mass. So we are, this is a picture of my kiddos in the Globe Club. This is just 7 of them. There were 2 of them missing the day that we took this picture, but they truly love it. And the young lady that's second from the left just joined. Her brother has been part of it. And she was so excited when she successfully uploaded data to the Globe website at our last club meeting. Was very excited, and she's a 3rd grader. And this is 2 pictures of where we are. We are truly an urban school right in the middle of Mansfield. And so the top left picture shows the parking lot, which is one of our data sites. And then we have a playground that is fairly secure. That is where I anticipate getting an actual weather station set up with the weather box and a min-max thermometer, the digital thermometer. And so that will be coming. And Globe Club is very excited at the prospects of that. And then before we get that in, I anticipate we'll be collecting some aerosol data. Thank you, Janet, for sending that kit. And that is about all I have to offer in terms of what I'm doing. I do want to offer, though, that my husband, Steve, teaches at the junior high, senior high, and he's been using Globe with his math class. He has integrated math and applied math. And some of those students actually have some learning challenges, and doing the hands-on math using the data collection with clouds specifically has really given those kids some excitement in learning math a different way. So I just want to throw that out there that, you know, don't think that just your best students can do Globe. And I doubt that anybody on this forum thinks that, but sometimes folks think that if a child's not very good at science, they're not going to really be able to do Globe. One of my students in the club actually is on the autism spectrum, and he just loves doing this. And a number of the students that Steve, my husband, has also have those kinds of learning challenges and really have benefited very, very much from the Globe program. And that is all that I prepared. Let me stop the share. There we go.
Thanks, Susan. It's very, very good, very good. And what's interesting is each of you is doing different protocols with your kids. So that's nice too. We didn't plan it that way. It's working out, right?
It works out well. Yes, it works out well.
All right, so let's hear from Marcy.
Alrighty, I'm here.
Good.
What I'm going to share with you tonight is just one of the pieces of Globe that we do, and that's the hydrology part. And one of the more challenging things, I think, for elementary kids is getting an understanding what the data means and how it all fits together. So I have started to implement two different things I'm going to share with you today that really have helped my students understand the big picture. And so the first thing is, I'm going to try to share my screen here, is using the resources of some NASA resources. And if you would go to NASA wavelength.org, it's oodles of electronic resources for earth science, earth system science. And so the specific area that has helped my students understand how the Globe data really fits together is the earth systems, the series of lesson plans. And they're really quite good. I find, especially for elementary, they have little data sheets for the kids that teaches them about how to, what the different spheres are, the hydrology and the pedosphere and the biosphere. And there's a little PowerPoint presentation that goes with it as well. The one that I like the best is called Water in the Hydrosphere. And because it really helps the kids understand what pH is and how to collect that data correctly. So it comes with a little PowerPoint presentation that is geared to the students that helps them understand that. Did that PowerPoint presentation load for you guys?
Well, it's kind of, looks like it's stuck a rectangle in the middle of the GPM slide.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I will just undo that. There we go. So anyway, that's a real good resource if you would need something to help teach your students about, specifically about what the data means and how the different pieces of the Globe protocols fit together is really good. And then it also ties in with some of the different newer satellite missions, like the Global Precipitation Mission Measurement Mission Satellite. So that's real helpful. And I have 4 science classes during the day, and when each class is collecting a different piece of the data, it's real hard for them to really get a picture of what's going on. So we were using the Enviroscape that I have in my classroom. It's a plastic model of a watershed, and you can put like different things on the farm and into a rural area, and if you spritz water on different areas, it shows how runoff goes into the waterways. So, and that's a commercially produced thing. But one of my students said, we should build our own Enviroscape because for the creek. So we did. We took a 4-foot round wading pool and put in 100 pounds of play sand. And so on the classroom floor we have, we did this a year ago. We had a model of our creek in our town. And so as the kids would collect data and do the surveys of the different plants that grow there, they would actually put little pins in the sand to just rebuild the model of a watershed. So in the 2 different study sites that we have along the creek, we could keep better track of what we were learning from each of the spring and summer, or the spring and fall sampling, and then all 4 classes could see what the other classes were doing. And then we would also pinpoint the area that we plan to do our spring creek cleanup that we've been doing for 4 years now. So it just becomes a real visual for the kids. So it's something that I would recommend if your kids really want to make a connection to the whole watershed that you're studying.
Great. So, Marcy, so that's, anyway, that's what you wanted to present.
Yes.
Okay, you wrapped it up. Okay, good. I just wasn't sure. Okay, so then our next speaker is Steve Frantz. Steve.
Hello, I think I'm here.
There you are. Hi.
I see myself. Alrighty, let me get my screen share going here. And okay, and I'm Steve Frantz, and I'm at Jennings Community Learning Center in Akron, Ohio. And like Susan, I'm in an inner city school. And this is actually my first year at this building. They closed my other building down, so I'm going through all the moving in boxes and trying to figure out what's still in boxes. But I was asked to speak to you tonight a little bit about mentoring. And I've been fortunate to have been doing Globe with my students for about 10 years now. And mentoring's been a really powerful component with what we're doing. Susan, you're lucky that you have that blended class where you can incorporate some of that as well. And that's kind of what I did. Was I have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and primarily in Globe, I have 7th and 8th graders. And we kind of refer them to like 1st-year students and 2nd-year students, because I might get 8th graders and it's their 1st year in Globe. So it really didn't matter really what grade they were in. It was what level in Globe they were in. So they apply to be in the program. A lot of it has to do with scheduling and all the additional courses that, unfortunately a lot of our struggling learners have to take. Their schedule just doesn't allow extra time throughout the day. But at any rate, we go through a selection procedure, and we had, again, a lot of this was scheduling. But when we get our kiddos ready, well, I guess I need to do, I can't see, oh, here we go, slideshow. Is that better? Okay.
Looks good.
Okay.
That looks the same though.
Yeah. Well, when we have our initial meeting, all of our former students that are still in our school do a little presentation in welcoming ceremony. We have cookie and cake, and sometimes we'll even get like a board member present. But we kind of do a little Ron Clark routine where the kids throughout the day get a golden ticket, and letting them know that they've been selected into the Globe program. So they're on cloud 9 because they carry around this little golden piece of paper that, it's an invitation. And then it's when it's time for them to come to the first meeting of Globe, we quite literally roll out the red carpet. And I found a really good use for the pink flag. So I'll let you see a short little video of the very first time these kids are coming into our Globe class. So this goes on and on and on, and it's kind of hard to hold the camera still as they're high-fiving you as you're trying to film and do 50 different things at once, it seems like. But if you see, there's a lot of staff buy-in, a lot of our teachers show up for this, and like I say, the former students will be there, and they really welcome them into the program. It's a really nice way to just kick off the year with the Globe program. Because this is an enrichment class. It's in addition to their other classes, the way that we had it structured. But some of the things that we do when we have the kids mentor each other is probably the first thing they do is they learn about how to use a GPS unit. And my returning students love to hide little goodie bags for the GPS treasure hunt. And middle school kids can get very, very, very cruelly creative on where they're going to hide a bag of candy and make the new kids try and find it with their GPS unit. And invariably, they always take the shortest kid and put their bag of candy way up on the football goal post. So, of course, they can't reach it. And they're, so it's a team building opportunity the way I look at it. But they have a lot of fun hiding the different bags of candy as they do their treasure hunt. With all the different tools in Globe, we do a lot with surface temperature, and the second-year students really, really take ownership of teaching the kids exactly how to hold the tools. And I think the kids are much more tuned in and much more critical than I ever am, making sure the kids have that angle correct and making sure they're within the certain area and making sure that the clouds are spot on, and they really, really do a very diligent job of making sure that they're collecting data properly so it can be used. I might add also my first year students do a much more basic project. Mainly they do comparative studies. We had an asphalt site, a dirt site, and a grass site. So they would do surface temperature, soil temperature, air temperature, variety thereof, points away from the asphalt to see the influence of asphalt on the grass. But they do pretty basic comparative studies, and then their second year, it's, they get to choose whatever project they want to do, and, they get very creative in what they want to look for. Data entry, and this is from the Midwest Regional, but for data entry, again, my second year students are really, really, really diligent, making sure everything's put in just right. And I know Kevin can attest our first couple years, we had a lot of struggles with putting in the correct time and, having our locations in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And I can tell you, we had a lot fewer mistakes with the students, mentoring the students, than me trying to, monitor each and every data set that was being entered. And I don't think, at least Kevin hasn't told me we've had as many mistakes here in the last few years. So
yeah, so far so good.
So far so good. but yeah, I mean, the kids, I mean, you just have more eyes on what's being done, and they take ownership of that. This is in preparation for the eclipse. But one thing that's not 100% globe related, but one thing that Globe used to have a link to this, but it was Globe at Night, where the kids counted stars of Orion and monitored light pollution. And this was a building-wide effort where the Globe students would go into every science classroom, and they did them all in one day. And they did a presentation to every single student in the school on how to collect data for Globe at Night and counting the stars of Orion. And the science teachers were always amazed at how much homework they called it homework, but we were data collecting. But so many of our students brought work back, and not only once, but multiple times would they bring data back. And on a normal quote-unquote homework, the percent brought back was very low, and it was always amazing just how many kids who just don't do homework would bring in data sheets. So even though this isn't a pure Globe project, it was just another aspect of data collection and getting kids inspired to do something other than just out of the textbook, so to speak. We do take a fair amount of field trips, and this is on our way to the Satellites Conference. And we do a walking tour of downtown Cleveland. And my second-year students, having been on that tour, they now assume the role of tour guides. So it's kind of neat watching a bunch of middle school kids guiding other kids in downtown Cleveland. And we never had anybody hit or anything like that. So I breathe a sigh of relief on that. At the end of the year, one thing we do is we write down, we still have chalkboards. I have an interactive whiteboard too, but I'm old enough, I do some old school stuff here too. But we write down all the different events throughout the year that, the kids go to. And, when you're doing these things one at a time, it seems like you're doing one at a time. But at the end of the year, when you really start writing down all the different things that the kids have done, places they've gone throughout the year, places they've presented throughout the year, it's really amazing that, these middle school kids, from the inner city have done so much. And when I look at other, middle school kids in Akron, they're just not getting these opportunities to be able to interact with adults in meaningful projects and in meaningful discussions. So again, it is just another testament to the power of what the Globe program brings these kids. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Steve. And then Tracy was having trouble seeing your slides. Was there anybody else that had trouble seeing Steve's slides? Okay, I don't see any people saying they didn't have any problems or were having problems other than Tracy. So it might be just Tracy's computer for some reason. All right, well, let's open it up to some questions. I do want to say you guys did a wonderful job. 6 of you spoke, and in a short period of time. If it was professors, we'd be here to midnight, because you can't have 6 professors just keep going on and on. And Steve, if you unshare your screen.
I'm trying to do it. I'm getting the rainbow wheel of death on my Mac. It's just rainbowing around. I'm trying. I'm clicking. I'm sorry. I know what to do. It's just nothing's happening.
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm just getting the rain. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Let's see if I can do something here.
You guys can override my ancient computer.
Well, I have the same problem, yeah. No, I can't.
Well, I'll just keep clicking, but maybe I can just, I don't know what I did there.
Okay.
Well, that started it all over again. We can watch it. I'm sorry.
I know one time I had to turn off my computer. But anyway, let's open up for questions to everybody, except for Steve.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
I'm just.
yeah, it's just nothing is. It's just I'm frozen. So you guys can all watch something other than me. I'm gonna bug off here and try and get back in here. Okay?
Yeah, try to get back in. Okay. Thanks. So if you want, you could type questions into the box, the chat box, or you can unmute yourself if you want to ask questions. Or just
Laura in Toledo, Ohio. What are, I don't know, I really want to collect aerosol data, but we just keep not having days conducive to that. And of course, it was clear for a little bit today and we missed the opportunity to get outside. So I don't know, does anybody have any advice for kind of keeping their kids interested in the aerosol campaign despite that challenge?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So on cloudy days, we would just collect the temperature and just describe the cloud cover. Just, to keep them out there and then just reporting that. Because we've had a few cloudy days. Sorry.
We're in different worlds.
Right.
But that's why people move to California.
Wow.
There's something to be said for that routine thing, Laura, where you still get the kids outside. You still have them fill out a data sheet and they can check obscure, but they can still report a temperature, maybe add surface temperature that day with, something super simple like that, just to kind of get them in that continual routine. And I think, that's keeping them engaged in the campaign through, maybe a couple different protocols that are super, easy to do might be worth it.
I think that does make sense for keeping them engaged. Thank you. But their specific research question involves aerosol collection. So I'm almost wondering if I should change their question.
When are they presenting their project?
We have a deadline to be done March 2nd.
Okay, because let me just share the screen for a second, because I wanted to go over when projects are due for different things. So anyway, this is our Globe Mission Earth slide of all our partners and what we're doing. So the virtual science symposium projects are due March 1st if you want to upload them for the virtual science symposium at Globe. And then, well, we have a University of Toledo conference on May 1st during the day. And then the Midwest is May 18th and 19th. The Pacific is May 18th and 19th, same days. So, and ours is at Wayne State. Pacific is at NASA Ames. And here's the other ones that students could go to. Oh, yeah, and so I have the slide, but apply for funding. I know many of you applied for funding, so I'm really happy about that. So we'll see how that goes. And then there is the annual meeting, and I know there are a few students from the U.S. planning to go, and they're raising funds and doing all that great stuff. So it can be done, I guess, to go to Ireland. Okay, so those are the different dates for the projects. So you're shooting for March 2nd. Yeah, it might be tough. I know this week is a wash with clouds. And then, and well, that was the other thing I hit up was I was looking at the weather models. It's a very active weather pattern across the middle part of the country. So we're just going to have storm after storm after storm come by. So I'm not very hopeful to get too many clear days.
I'll throw one more thing out there. Not that I'm committing people for more work, but collaborating with a school that does have more sunny days and is also taking aerosol data, temperature data, etc., might help the kids even just looking at their data or collaborating class to class on what they're doing versus what you're doing. Just throwing that out there, that it might be another way to engage the students.
I'm happy to have my students maybe FaceTime, or I don't know what grade level your students are, but that's a possibility.
Juliet, thank you. Could you type your email in the chat box and I will email you? Because I will take you up on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, good. I think that's the power of Globe that's pretty untapped, is schools working with each other. And I know Steve's done it a little bit. So we have another question from Deb in the chat box. I'm curious if when doing things with the first graders, if you do a whole group or do you break it down into small groups? And she's having trouble doing clouds and surface temperature with 26 kids in her. I think that's a Vicki and Gina question.
Well, as I said, I teamed up with a third grade classroom so that each kid, each student had a partner that could help them write and understand what was going on. Plus, it was kind of cool because then the third graders also got to learn about the cloud observations. So that's kind of how I did it. So I had another teacher and then these, the older children to help guide them.
Gina's the queen with cloud observations. When we were going to Globe, we had to stop the car so she could take pictures of clouds. My kids, we tend to do it whole group, just with my guys. I will go with Gina on this one because she's a lot better at this than I am. But they'll just look up and then we'll talk about it. They just think it's cool because I keep saying, oh, it's NASA, it's the space people. Oh, it's NASA, it's the space people. And Dr. C was so nice to say he would Skype with my class.
Mm-hmm. I will.
Oh, then it's like, this real important college professor is going to talk to you. But first graders, and I know Gina will agree with me on this one, if you challenge them to go above and beyond and tell them that they can do it, they absolutely positively can do it. They're a lot smarter than I am, and which isn't saying a lot, but when they think it's super important, they rise above and beyond. Because they're still at that stage where they think they're invincible and they can go above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah, that's great. So, Connie posted about how she uses the bulletin board, and hopefully you guys can look at the chat and read what she has said. And then Susan said, yeah, video conference with me. So that's, I was thinking, Steve, as you were talking, boy, I haven't talked with any of your kids in a couple of years, probably like 8. So it might be time to do a little Zoom meeting. You guys are getting used to doing Zoom. You would be surprised, I don't know, but the undergraduate students in my class this semester, I suggested we do a Zoom meeting, and it was like foreign language to them. Even doing like a web meeting, which I was surprised at. All right. Any other questions? So I'm doing a dramatic pause, right? So it's not just a...
Hey, this is Lisa. I have a question for really just anyone who does this. I think there were several examples of teachers who had some flexibility in taking kids outside or building a gigantic sand watershed in your classroom, or have it, in Steve's case, having a class that was, a kind of an enrichment and not part of the standard curriculum. And I'm curious whether you needed to kind of fight for that with administrators, or whether there was support for that.
Every year, all the time, you have to fight for it.
Okay.
And sometimes my class would be my duty period, so I had to go through the union and get their blessing. Sometimes I would teach it during my lunch period. It's a great weight loss program that I should probably do again. But yeah, I mean, by hook or by crook, you find the time and make the time. I didn't have the luxury, especially in the inner city, of having it after school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to be during the school day. Of course, we had lockdowns and things like that. You can't go outside, but
sure,
teachers are amazed that the kids are still kids, no matter where they're from. And, you get them outside, and some of them are like really squeamish. They're walking on grass, but they get over it pretty well. They're pretty resilient. But yeah, by hook or by crook, every year I have to beg. I don't know how that works with the rest of y'all, but yeah. And getting the kids in the paper in front of the school board, and any of your positive PR goes a long way to building a program and sustaining a program. Anytime you can do those PR moves, I mean, those positive stories about your kids help tremendously.
I've never had a fight for anything to do Globe in classroom. It's always been really easy, and administrators just kind of leave me alone, which is great.
Even with that giant sand,
Oh yeah. I mean, and the kids can't go outside for recess because it's like 20 degrees, but when it's pouring down rain and or snowing so hard you can't see across the playground, they're out there getting data. So, the administration just leaves me alone because they see great outcomes. So that's the good part.
That's great.
Wow, they can't go outside when it's 20.
It's really sad. Or if there's like a flake of snow on the blacktop.
That's amazing. Oh yeah, so Janet's noting that where she is right now closes in 3 minutes. So we probably need to wrap up tonight. I appreciate everybody calling in, and we had great stories of implementation of Globe in the classroom. I really appreciate everybody sharing. And anybody on the webinar, if you want to do a Zoom meeting with me, that's great. I can do that. We also have other people that are willing to do meetings with you, and there's even NASA people we might be able to get to do a meeting with your kids. And it could be just even 10 or 15 minutes, just a real quick in and out, in your classroom. So anyway, have a good night and keep doing Globe.